Thank you for the introduction. As you've already heard, my name is Matt Mitchell, and I'm going to be speaking to you about cybersecurity capacity building and the cybersecurity assessment tool. Um, yeah. Now, when you're an organization and you're trying to look at how to stay safe, and for whatever reason, whether you're trying to protect yourselves from criminal hackers or other adversaries, cybersecurity is a topic that we need to speak about, but it's different from individual security. We're focused on organizational security. Individual security might be easier to find information on. Maybe I need to install the Signal app to encrypt my mobile phone messages or something like that. But capacity building for organizational cybersecurity is very different, and that's what I'm going to get into right now. Um, but if you are interested in individual security, I do recommend Security Planner, which is a product made by Consumer Reports. It's a free website and it talks all about that. One of the first things that I did at Ford Foundation, which is where I work, which is a philanthropy. Ford is an 80-year-old, basically philanthropic organization, and we have one key mission, which is fighting inequality wherever it is. And we do that around the world. We have an office in Mexico, we have an office in Colombia, we have an office in Egypt, we have an office in West, East, and South Africa through our Nigeria, Kenya, and South African offices. And we have offices in Indonesia, India, China. And through these regional offices, we do a lot of work making the world more equal, better place, better for all people, and the better future through our grantees, who we convene, we bring together, and also who we support through grants. And one of the things that we do to support our grantees is we assist them with capacity building. And in the area of cybersecurity capacity building, that's where my job is. That's where I focus. Now, one of the first things you can do to build your cybersecurity capacity is through insurance. Having cybersecurity liability insurance is quite important. It gives you the opportunity to move the risk away from where your organization, you're holding it, you're responsible, and to another place. Cybersecurity liability insurance, one of the first things that I would recommend anyone who wants to safeguard their organization. But recently, it's become difficult to get, and that is because if you pay for insurance on your health or insurance on your life, maybe you have insurance on your dental care. A year might go by and you don't need to use it. Everyone pays a policy, and the few people who need to use it, then the insurance company pays out. And policies priced so many people can hold on to it. Well, with cyber, it's different because ransomware, which is the kind of attack where someone will encrypt your computer and your computer is encrypted, and you show up one day, you turn on the computer to start work, and it's like, this computer is encrypted, you cannot use me. If you want to use this computer, you have to pay this hacker some Bitcoin or some money. And that is widespread, and that has created a situation where a lot of people have been using their cybersecurity liability insurance because this has happened to them. And of course, that because of that, kind of like when there's too many car accidents, rates go up. And the rates not only go up, but the requirements on insurance go up. So while I say it's a good idea to look into insurance, it's harder and harder to be eligible to have a good insurance product protect you. And also, deductibles are higher than normal. It's an ever-changing industry right now, but it's worth looking into, partly because the underwriting, which says you must reach this criteria before you can get this insurance package. And a lot of the stuff that they ask for is just good, important housekeeping for any organization. Like, you must have a certain level of cybersecurity training. You must understand your risk. You must, um, you know, uh, pay for certain services before you can use our insurance package. It's kind of like someone who says you must be healthy, not smoking, running up the stairs, doing exercise to get this really good health insurance package. Similar thing with cybersecurity liability. So just speaking to someone about it kind of helps you have a conversation, which makes you better, even if you don't go through with buying an insurance package. I think just understanding what it takes and what it gives you is, in an incident when you get hacked, in a moment when you get hacked, if there's a breach, you can call the insurance provider and they'll help you with the responding to those incidents. They help you with someone to come and save you. So it's really nice, right? And that's one of the first things you can do when you're building your cybersecurity capacity is look into moving the risk, look into things like liability insurance. Now, another thing you'll need to do really early on is to just get a general assessment of where you are. It's really hard to understand cybersecurity, so it's really hard to understand where you are in that journey. Like, am I weak? Am I in the middle? Am I very strong? And to that effect, I put together this thing called the Cybersecurity Assessment Tool, or CAT. And at the Ford Foundation, the Cybersecurity Assessment Tool is available to nonprofits, anyone really, because it's on our public internet. We feel really powerfully about this. We think it's so important that people have an assessment, and many people don't. When I was working as a practitioner in the field, I would say, hey, do you ever have any idea of where you are? And most people don't. So this is a quick triage, just puts you into okay risk, low risk, or high risk in different areas, so that you can do better, right? Sorry, excuse. So that's you can do better. And it explains what the next steps are, which is another thing that's challenging and difficult to people to understand. Like, well, what should I do next now that I understand that I have a lot of room for improvement, or now that I understand that I'm very strong? There's always another step. You always can get stronger. It's much like if you go to the gym, you go to the CrossFit gym. No one ever says, oh, you're strong enough, you've reached the maximum level of strength. No, there's always another thing you can do to improve your health. Now, the cybersecurity assessment tool was something that I led the work on. It's an idea that I conceived, but I needed some of the best minds in cybersecurity to help me make it happen. And that's when, I reached out to this team. It's a team of cybersecurity experts and an amazing journalist and project manager, Matt Hansen. So Runa Sandvik is a cybersecurity expert known for her amazing work at the New York Times. She's an expert on people who have extremely high risk, not like your normal cyber risk, and maybe just the few most surveilled, most tracked, most targeted individuals, and how to keep them safe. We also had Trin Nguyen, who's an expert on organizations that are like more like colectivos, more like clusters of groups, pro-democracy groups, internet freedom groups, a lot of nonprofits in their early stages, things like that. Trin's an expert on what it takes to keep them safe and the risk that they face on the internet and the different cyber risk they face. Going back up to on the right side of Martin Gruten, and Martin formerly wrote a newsletter on malware and viruses. He's an expert on malware and viruses. He's an expert on a lot of the latest threats, and someone who everyone in the industry knows. Someone who decided to pivot and change his career from working in the cybersecurity corporate industry to assisting nonprofits in their work. And currently, he's over at Internews in his day job. And Laura Tish, who is a Kenyan cybersecurity expert who runs an organization called She Hacks, which works to get more women into cybersecurity in the different countries of Africa. Laura is an expert on what it takes to stay cyber safe when you don't have a lot of resources, when you don't have a lot of capabilities, when internet infrastructure isn't on your side, when there's a lot of different obstacles in your way. How can we implement all these recommendations, suggestions, and they'll work for any organization, whether in the global south, whether they're in an African country, whether they're in the Pacific, whatever. So, and Laura really knows how to make that happen. Now, the actual tool itself, I can show you what it looks like. If you go to this right here, if you go to the website for the Ford Foundation, the department that I'm in is called Building Institutions and Networks. And the cybersecurity assessment tool is that option on the menu there right next to organizational mapping tool. We have the cybersecurity assessment tool. It'll introduce you to the team, and then there'll be an area where you can get started. And all you do is you click on this thing and you answer some questions. It'll ask you some basic questions about your risk, like about your organization. And in about 45 minutes, maybe less, you should be able to complete the survey. And it's kind of like a Cosmo magazine quiz or a Facebook quiz. Very simple, multiple choice. And different areas, operational security, device security, associated risk, and account security. And these are the kind of the buckets that we ask the questions in. Operational security is like how you operate as an organization. Device security is like your laptops, your phones, the servers that you're using. Something that we call associated risk are the risks that could come from things you might not realize, that your association and things you're associated to. Perhaps you have an employee or a staff member who is a award-winning journalist who have recently had an op-ed that was controversial, and some people liked it, some people didn't. Well, that will bring some temporary additional risk towards your organization. Some of that might be through cyberbullying or upset posts on social media, but it can lead to things like doxing, where personal information is leaked online, or someone's targeted online electronically. And then account securities. How do we keep people's accounts safe and secure with their username and password and things like that, right? Once the assessment is filled out in those different areas, you're given a report that says your organization has scored below our recommended security level, or at a reasonable level, or higher. Congratulations, good job. But we always include a recommendation on exactly next steps for you to take, as well as a little story about a fictional nonprofit, just so you understand like how you could be using this. Like this is how a group might have used this information to stay safe. And it gives you that in different areas. So you can be strong in one area, maybe room for improvement in another area, and at a reasonable level in the last area, right? And that's what the tool looks like. Now, going back to speaking about cybersecurity, once you have the assessment through that tool, it really gives you an idea of where you are. So you're saying, I know where I am, I know what steps I need to take. We recommend that you reach out to a cybersecurity professional to help you with those steps. But no matter who you are and where you are, one of the next steps is always going to be to create a policy. And a security policy is something that we recommend. A security policy is when you have a document that tells you everything that you need to do to stay safe and everything your organization is already doing to keep people electronically safe. Sometimes it's just an idea and you've never really written it down. So the security policy allows you to do that. It also has elements of these are things that should not be happening, right? And these are why we're keeping ourselves safe. We're keeping ourselves from certain risk, right? From that, you should have an incident response plan. That's the next thing after security policy. How would I respond to an incident if they happened in our organization? Something from our policies was activated. For example, the incident might be an important person in the organization dropped their phone in a cab, or lost their laptop, right? There are certain known incidents, things that you can imagine, and they tend to happen to other organizations that do similar work. So it's not that hard to think of, but just writing them down and how you would respond to them saves you so much time. Doing that when you're calm and when there is no emergency allows you to pull out this playbook, as you would call it, and use that later and activate those different plays. You can say if something's lost, what we'll do is we'll report it as being lost or stolen. We will remotely wipe any data that's on it. We will let people know that person's device was lost, and it may be if someone's impersonating them, be on the lookout. So just be a little bit more uh, suspicious if you hear from this person, right? Because maybe it's not them, maybe it's their stolen laptop or phone. And there are tools that you can use that allow you to do these things, but we just want to make sure people know about them. Another important thing that you'll want to do to stay safe and grow your cybersecurity capacity is to change onboarding and offboarding. Onboarding being how you hire someone for a role. No matter what the job is, maybe there should be a little sentence or two there about cybersecurity, about you should know the best practices in staying digitally safe. Even for an accountant or a president, just put that line in there. And during the interview, you'll bring it up and say, "Oh, I see that digital safety is important here. We'll make sure that when you start, you have that information." And when the person first begins their job, when they're first getting their laptop set up and their desk set up or whatever, um, they can be given a quick booklet on how important digital security and safety is. That way, from the very beginning, you're starting with a culture of someone that takes this serious, right? And with offboarding, we're talking about when a person leaves the organization and they're no longer part of the organization. That could be because they've retired, because they're removed from the organization, because they've been dismissed. Maybe the funding has dried up and now that's no longer a department. Always make sure you ask people when they're leaving, do you have anything, any data? Do you have any access still to anything at the organization? And also, did you see anything that you felt was a digital risk or was not digitally safe at the organization before you leave? Because once they're gone, you're never going to be able to get that USB that's under the bed. The slower to get a response on how you can improve things. So offboarding, when someone is fully honest, they're no longer beholden to a paycheck. The boss is no longer the boss; they're just a human being. Is a good time to ask them about their concerns and the issues and things that they've seen. Using secure communications is another important step that we recommend when it comes to increasing cybersecurity. And that is a step that you'll need to do organizationally, not just individually. Make sure everyone has a secure way to communicate. Whether that's like we all use Signal all the time, no matter what, or we all use the WhatsApp app, and we all set our messages to disappear after a week, and we all set our backups to be encrypted no matter what. Just having those standards that how everyone will communicate and when they'll communicate using those ways is important. So the staff doesn't guess, staff doesn't need to be confused. Um, Wrapping up, one of the last things is a data retention policy. If a hacker shows up, they want to get your data. And if your first email is welcome to this email service, when you first signed up like 10 years ago, and it's 10 years of data there, that's quite valuable to target. So by having a data retention policy, you're saying we will only retain the data for a certain period of time, and then we'll remove it. We will delete that data. We won't hold it any longer. So obviously, for reasons of like compliance with government standards and taxes, some data you won't be able to do that to, but you really want to try to shed and remove any data you can. It doesn't mean you delete it forever. Maybe you just make it less available by moving it off of the cloud, off of the inboxes, and into a secure hard drive that's stored in a facility or a safe. Maybe it's encrypted, or maybe it's archived, so only one or two people have access to it. And that makes things a lot safer by having a data retention policy. You really control the availability of data, and therefore there's less data to secure. And then the very last step is not all data is the same. Categorize your data, putting your data in buckets like data that almost is okay to leak and data it's a problem if it leaks, but we will protect it. And in the last step, data that is highly sensitive and should never leak and would be very damaging if something bad happens to that data. That last bucket, you will treat that data differently. You'll make sure that you secure it with everything you have. Maybe you'll make it not on the cloud or not highly available. Maybe you'll make it that staff members need to have a certain level of understanding before they could even touch or interact with that data. That's an important step, that categorization. So here you have an idea of how we've worked at Ford Foundation, how we've worked to get our grantees to be safer, things that we've had them think about, and what that steps can look like. You learned about the cybersecurity assessment tool, which is on the free and open internet. It's going to be redesigned shortly. It's also going to be translated into 6 languages, including Brazilian Portuguese and Espanol. So by having a Spanish language one, I'm hoping that you'll be able to use the tool a lot easier and faster. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Wingu, and have a good day.